Yeah, no one knows how long it's going to take us before we can actually get back in person with each other.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi
Hey,
guys,
Katie.
how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. Okay, so I have how many of us are on here so far?
Well, there's 10 total. So there's there's you, myself, Aaron Clippy, Jennifer Conrad, and then I guess 7 guests or visitors.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to get the best visual for me.
And I shared my screen. You should be able to see the agenda.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Hold on. View options. Sorry. Claire, can you help me? My daughter's gonna help me. Can you come? Oh yeah. Hold on. Okay. Come help me so that Claire, the video's off now. No, the video's not off. Now the video's off. Okay.
It was off, or
Oh,
it was on.
Okay. Help. Right.
There's guests on that line.
Be a guest.
Can you keep it down? And get her walked. I haven't heard from Karen. Jennifer, did you get were you able to do a test with Karen Alexander?
I was not, but I talked to her several times on Friday.
Okay.
Hey, John.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, John, can you share your video?
I thought I just did.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay.
And I keep checking the list to see if I need to bring anybody else in.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like we have 17 total right now, so there's quite a few visitors. So welcome to the visitors if they can hear me.
They should be able to.
Okay.
Chief Curtis, you're in front of the whole city hall. Oh, your thing isn't on.
Yeah, I don't see Dale.
I should be on, am I not, Jennifer?
There you are.
I
Okay.
see you.
Nice backdrop.
There's Karen. She
Hi,
just showed up.
Karen. Hi, Mayor.
Hi, Karen. I can't see you. There we go. I just changed it to grid view.
Oh yeah, panel.
Hi, Jerry.
Hi, Kevin.
You have your quorum. I don't know if you were expecting anyone else.
I thought Scott was going to join us.
Is that
And
Scott Gresh?
yes, and then
He told me today he was not.
Gene Schultes too.
Okay, I know Scott's not coming.
Oh, he's not.
No, that's what he told me today when he emailed me.
Okay. And I don't know if
I don't know about Jean. I hadn't heard from her.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order because we have an awful lot of information to discuss tonight, and I'm hoping to get through it all in a reasonable amount of time. But I thought what I would do, so I'm calling it to order, and what I would like to do is during roll call, I'll start, but since we have quite a few visitors and guests that are joining the call, I want to, I think, introduce ourselves and a little bit of background behind who we are, and then why we are participants on this board. So I'll start. My name is Kevin Sombart. I've been a citizen of Webster Groves for almost 32 years. My daughter went to Webster schools. We love the community. I've never sat on a board or commission before. I've never held public office. This is all new territory for me, but I wanted to be able to give back to the community that I love living in. And really, during these very tumultuous times, I think that's important that we get as many people involved in the community as we possibly can, even if they haven't been involved before. Karen? Is Karen still with us?
She's on the list.
Have you muted yourself, Karen?
It looks like she's on mute to me.
Yeah, click on the unmute, Karen. And then
Kevin, you might be able to unmute her as the host, if you're the host.
I'm the host.
Okay.
Jennifer's
It
the
says
host.
she's not muted. It doesn't say she's muted. It tells me I can mute her. Maybe she stepped away for a second.
No,
Nope, she's
I see
right.
her.
Well, she did step away now.
Okay, we'll come back to Karen. Katie, could you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. My name's Katie Friedman Miller, and I am a licensed clinical social worker and a therapist in private practice. And I've lived in Webster for 16 years. And I've also, like Kevin, I've never served on a board before, but, you know, as we know, this past few months hasn't been the start of change. Change has been going on in Webster for a while, and mental health is a big concern to me on all sides of the equation. So I was hoping I would be of some help in that way in particular.
Okay. Thank you. John?
Hello, everyone. I'm John Thomas. I'm the Director of Student Services for the Webster Groves School District. I am finishing up year 28 in the district. I've been a teacher, a coach, a high school administrator, and this is my 8th year as a central office administrator. I'm also a resident of the community for 14 years. Per the city charter that developed this this group, there's a representative from the school district, and I think I was chosen because I handle our student safety. I am our liaison with the police department, and like Kevin and Katie have said, this is the first time I've been a part of a board like this.
Thank you. Karen, are you back with us?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry. I forget.
Yes.
Sometimes I have to plug up to.
Did
So,
you,
yes.
yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself and a lot of people know who you are now, right?
Right. So my name is Karen Alexander, and my family has lived in Webster Grove since '64. I attended Webster schools, and I moved away after college to Maplewood, is where I bought my first home. But I moved back and bought a home here in 2010, and I've just been very active in the community. But this was the first board that I was actually a part of. And I just wanted to be engaged because I wanted to be involved in the conversations about the police engagement with the community. And it's been a good conversation. And my term was originally for a year. So actually, March was the end of my term because of my interest in running for city council, which was a successful run so far. Thank you very much. So I won't be participating on the board going forward because of city council response.
Hey, Jerry. Yeah, Jerry and Jerry
Yeah.
Welch, our mayor, and Police Chief Dale Curtis are liaisons of the board. So they kind of keep us on the straight and narrow as far as procedures and provide a lot of internal information that we frequently request. Oh, Scott's with us.
We do have Scott, yeah.
Great.
So, Scott, what we've done is we're in the middle of the roll call. We've called the meeting to order, and I wanted everyone to kind of introduce themselves. And I know you're the appointee that's a physician that's on the board, which was one of the requirements. So if you could kind of introduce yourself and kind of explain why you want to participate. You need to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, perfect.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Dr. Scott Gresh. I'm work with Washington University down in the city. My father was part of police force growing up, so I had a natural interest in it, but also I see the engagement of my job in the city with the community directly. So that was part of my interest initially. I've been in Webster Groves for 20 years. We are dealing with many issues related to issues being discussed by the larger community now that impact our emergency room down at the Washington University and Barnes Hospital. So that's the beginning of my nature of interest, and I got asked to be a participant. Of course, I feel that as a physician, I have a public safety and health mission as well, part of this task force.
Yeah, there's the two additional members of the board that have not joined us yet, and I don't know if they're going to be able to, but Reverend Eric Hayes is our clergy representative, and he's the pastor on the church on Kirkham. I think it's Community Baptist Church, and so you know, his input is very valuable on this board, and he is able to talk with his parishioners on a frequent basis to get input that we wouldn't otherwise receive. So it really adds a lot to the discussions that we have. And then
I did just pull Jean over.
okay.
Hi, sorry, I've been listening. I had to switch from my phone to my computer, and
Okay,
so,
great. So you know the what we're going through at this point, right?
yep.
Okay. Go ahead and introduce yourself and why you're participating on the board.
Okay. My name is Jean Schultes. I am the owner of Kind Soap Company in Old Webster. I also live in Webster Groves, and I have 4 kids who have gone through the Webster Groves public school system. So I think I'm mainly bringing kind of the business owner side to the board. And I just wanted to be more active in the community and helping with kind of bringing those voices that I deal with in the business community to the board.
Great, thank you. We also have a student representative that Lane Roberts has termed out essentially because of graduation. John Thomas, who is our student coordinator, will be searching for a new student representative that really brings some input from the younger population in the school age population, especially at the high school level, which adds a lot to our discussions and brings really a different perspective to what we're trying to do and how we're trying to better engage with the community. And then again, I'll move back to Jerry. Our mayor, do you want to say anything, Jerry?
No, I'm glad to be the liaison to this board that has worked very hard, and such a wonderful, committed group of folks. Thank you all very, very much for all that you've been doing over the last couple, well, before the last couple of months. So thank you.
Right. And then Chief Dale Curtis, go ahead and introduce yourself and, kind of how long you've been with the Webster Groves Police Department. And we'll be hearing from Dale a lot today or this evening to provide some of the information that is of concern with many in our community.
Thanks, Kevin. Excuse me, I'm Dale Curtis. I'm the police chief. I've been here for 23 years. Obviously, I think the board's done a lot of good work. I think we have a lot of work to do. And obviously, we have a lot of issues to cover as well. I think we can do that. And I believe that we can move forward and tackle a lot of the things that I think are difficult issues, but things that we do need to address. And like I said, I really appreciate the work of the board. I know it's involves a lot of work on your part, and also the participation from the community and the input we get from them are things that I think are very important in the operation of the police department. As I've told the board from the start, we police the way the community wants us to police. As long as it's within the law, however the community wants us to police is what our goal is. We're not perfect. That's our goal, but we're not perfect. But that's certainly what we are trying to be. So in any case, I welcome all the input from the participants and certainly the work of the board.
Great. Thanks, Chief Curtis. So the first order on the agenda is to after the roll calls to approve the minutes from the previous meeting. That is from March 10th. It seems like it's been an eternity ago, even though it's only been a few months. This has been very challenging for all of us, I think, and trying to transition. But are there any changes to the minutes from the March 10th meeting? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve those minutes? Whoever wants to make the motion needs to unmute themselves.
Motion to approve.
Jean?
Second.
Scott? All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. The minutes are approved. So the next order of the agenda really is something that I wanted to put on there because someone that is very special to me and to this board is leaving for a very important reason. And I wanted to congratulate Karen Alexander for her election to the city council. I am going to miss her valuable input during our conversations and our discussion. I did not know Karen before this, and I've grown to really appreciate all that she has to say and that the viewpoint that she has, and she's brought so much to this board, and I'm really gonna miss her. I'm gonna miss you, Karen. But
Congratulations, Karen.
But that being said, with her change to being a city council member, I hope that we can continue to have really positive dialogue and conversations about what this board really needs to accomplish and the goals that we all have for going forward with this engagement process. So Karen, I would like you to say a few things, and then we'll move on to the next item on the agenda.
Thank you, Kevin. And I have really appreciated the time, and this year went so quickly, but there were a lot of information, good information that we learned, things that I would really like to continue helping in any way that I can, because there were things that we experienced, I thought, from the training demo that the police officers go through, and then just even communicating the importance of the community, the training that's available that people in the community can take advantage of. I think that, Del, Chief will explain, we don't probably do it as often as we could because there's a lack of participation. I'm sorry, I'm not thinking of the exact name of the program.
The Citizens Police Academy, right?
Right, the Citizens Police Academy. So, I want to take advantage of the ability to continue being involved in whatever ways that I can, and especially because of the working with the community, either from city council perspective and with whatever input or however I can work to stay engaged. I'm definitely willing to do so, because I think that the work that we've started is really good, and I just want to see it continue.
Thank you so much. And again, we're going to miss you.
Yeah, I miss you a lot already, Karen, and we learned so much from you just by sitting by you for a few sessions. So,
thank you.
Congratulations,
really excited
Karen.
for you.
Thank you.
You'll be a loss to this group, but I'm so tickled for the city of Webster Groves that you'll be representing the entire community, and your voice. That's a wonderful thing. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. I really second that wholeheartedly. So I'm glad that she's moving on to greener pastures, so to speak, right? So
It's our
the
game.
next item on the agenda really is on May 5th, we had an incident occur on Interstate 44 that involved one of our police officers getting injured. We can't talk a lot about the details behind it because it's still under investigation by St. Louis County. But I do want to hear from Chief Curtis as to the condition of the officer and any other information that he is able to provide at this time.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. The officer is doing well. He's came back to light duty a couple weeks ago. He recently had surgery to remove another one of the bullets, and he's out right now, but he should be back next week from that. We anticipate after a psychological fit and another medical release that he should be back to work probably sometime late June or early July.
Yeah, again, we can't discuss a lot about the incident at this point because of the investigation that's underway, but in future meetings and in information that we will provide to the public, we'll be able to have additional information regarding the incident.
Yeah, but I can speak to what occurred. He had a call to assist for a stranded motorist on 44, and when he got out of the car to approach the car to assist the person immediately opened the door and began firing at him. He was shot 6 times before he was able to return fire. And that's basically what occurred. We had the video of the incident, and as soon as St. Louis County prosecuting attorney gives us the green light on it, we can actually show the video. Unfortunately, I'm not able to show it this evening.
Right, right. And unfortunately, the gentleman that made the choice to fire at the police officer lost his life as well. And that's just, I mean, it's regrettable and horrible in all situations when that occurs. Thankfully, in Webster Groves, that does not happen very often. I think that Dale, could you possibly expand a little bit on the number of times a firearm is actually discharged within the city of Webster? Just from what we have learned over the last year, it just doesn't. Thankfully, it doesn't happen very often.
That's only the second time that we've had an officer involved with any type of weapon being discharged. The other time was about 3 years ago when the suspect was struck with his own weapon discharged while he was struggling with an officer. So again, I've been here 23 years. Those are the only 2 incidents I've known where we've actually had an officer involved in any kind of weapon being discharged. Thank you so much. And you know, our prayers are with the family, not only of the gentleman that you know made the choice he did, but also with the police officer, the family, and all the police officers in Webster Groves and you, because it is what you do is a dangerous thing. It's you don't know what to expect when you approach a vehicle. The next item on the agenda is I'm actually going to move it up a little bit.
Kevin, can we ask a question of Chief?
Sure, absolutely.
Thanks, Chief. I'm just kind of curious what kind of, you mentioned, I forget the terminology you use, like fit to work or whatever, but can you speak a little bit to the type of support that you provide for the officer and really the whole department when something traumatic like that happens, to make sure that everybody is mentally okay and is able to process the incident, the events that took place?
Sure. Again, fortunately, we don't have to take advantage of it very often, but the officer that was shot and all the officers that were working on duty that night that responded to the call, along with the communications officer from the dispatch center, underwent about a 2.5 to 3 hour debriefing with an organization, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the name, but it's a St. Louis and St. Louis County organization that provides professional counseling. They also have officers that have been through those kind of incidents. They were brought in, when they met upstairs in our conference room here. Like I said, they went through a debriefing of the incident. Were able to talk about it, discuss it. The officer himself that was shot has been to our employee assistance program. He's gone through counseling on 3 occasions now, and then he will also be assigned a psychological assessment through a medical doctor, either a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and we'll give him a fit for return to duty, and he will continue if that's felt like it's necessary, or he feels like it's necessary, he'll continue with that. We also provided support to the family. Our officers were at his house for 4 days following the incident, and we helped them with issues as far as getting supplies and anything that they needed. So we gave them as much support as we possibly could. And again, fortunately, it doesn't happen too often, but we do have a process for counseling and assistance to any officer who needs it.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Chief Curtis?
I'm not sure, Chief, if you have or can release the name of the officer. I never heard who it was. I know several of the officers, and I just don't. I was just kind of wondering if it was any of the ones that I know. If you can't say the name at this point, that's fine. But I was just wondering if I missed it somewhere.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Gene. We don't release the name of officers that involved in shootings.
Okay.
It's basically for protection of their family.
Yeah.
Any other questions? So I wanted to move up, and I'll take chairman prerogative here, to move up the remarks of the visitors. And I received 5 remarks that I would like to share, and they are all from a different perspective. And they all point to really a reason why this Police Community Engagement Board is so important, I think, in what we have done and what we are going to do. But one of them, and I'll leave off the last names of the people that submitted. They will be officially logged in the minutes of the meeting. But the first comment that I received was from Anna, and she states that she grew up in Webster Groves for almost all of her life. She is the director of a national child welfare organization, and she has a deep understanding of the impact of state-sanctioned violence on our children. And I'm truly invested in changing the laws and culture that uphold white supremacy here in Webster and across the country. Our lives and the lives of our friends, family, and community depend on it. In Webster Groves, Black people are 4 times more likely to be stopped by Webster police than white people. This is self-reported by the Webster Groves Police Department in their annual report. And in St. Louis, when stopped, Black people are 7 times more likely to be killed by police than white people, which is higher than the national average. Enough has been enough. And I'm not at this point verifying any of this data, but I just wanted to share the comment with you. Additionally, Webster Groves Police Department for 2021 is funded at over $5 million, an increase from last year, and the highest funded department in the city by nearly $2 million. Again, I don't know if that's to be true, but it's certainly we can look into that. This increase to police despite an overall deficit from last year. In fact, critical federal funding to support relief from this global pandemic is also slated to go to the police, money that could be going to healthcare, economic recovery, housing, or education across St. Louis. Meanwhile, there is no statistical correlation or evidence between increased police and decreased crime. So why are we continuing to use our money to fund a system that is not working? I am demanding that the Webster Grove City Council make an overt and visible commitment to racial justice by dismantling and defunding the municipal police department and redistribute the nearly $5 million that is currently budgeted for public safety into new community alternatives, healthcare, housing, education, youth programs, and financial reparations for Black community members both in Webster Groves and across St. Louis. Disarming all current officers, ending the routine practice of officers bearing fatal weaponry, remove policing authority from any officer with past instances of excessive force or police misconduct, not hiring and immediately terminating anyone who has had past misconduct and complaints of racial bias, urging Mayor Krewson and the St. Louis County Council to defund St. Louis County Police Department and close the workhouse. It is time we envision a new world. I will also be sending this same letter to the council. Thank you. I wanted to share that simply because this particular individual has a very strong opinion about what is going on in the nation. And I don't necessarily always agree with what I hear, but it's always valuable information because something has caused this individual to think this way. And I think it's important for this board to share as much information as we can about the police department, its policies, its procedures, how it impacts the community positively, so that we all can continue to live in a safe and work in a safe environment. But I did want to share that with you because that is the view shared by some. As I've read, as I've looked at the news, as I've experienced the situations across the nation with some of the protests, this is an opinion that is shared by some. So I wanted to at least share it with everyone here.
So Kevin, is this a moment where we want to talk about some of these remarks, or when would that be?
I think that you could. I think let's do it very briefly because the meeting's gonna. We've got a lot to discuss, but I do want to get your input, and I think it probably would be good after I read each one so it's familiar.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess that, you know, I think this may be an oversight from the very beginning of when we convened, which is, I don't know the answer to this, and maybe it's something we decide together. Maybe it seems explicit to other people and it's just not explicit to me. Is like the purview of what we are undertaking just literally about individual pieces of the Webster Groves Police Department experience, or is it about the way systems in the United States impact our police department and our community? And so I guess I would like to know what people think about that, or if there is an explicit answer.
I second your question. I think that that is a good question to make clear. Are we dealing only with the activities between Webster Groves Police Department and the community? Or are we trying to, look at it almost like a nationwide situation and how maybe we can help I mean, it seems like a huge task to take on, like, systemic racism, but I mean, we're just, we can't possibly do that in once a month here. But I think that needs to be clarified, because we don't have that many incidents necessarily in Webster Groves to only focus on things, community. I mean, basically community outreach would be a good thing to kind of do all the time. But I think you guys probably get where I'm coming from, and like Katie said, can we clarify that a little bit? I know that we've clarified our statements a lot, what we do, but I think that the public is expecting different things from us than what we are.
Or do we get to decide or choose on our own? Because I guess that I get what you're saying, Jean, and that oh my gosh, that's such a big thing. But I also feel like if we don't address that, then we're sort of, I mean, there are so many parts of it. I think we're missing some big opportunities. I think we're making people feel silenced in our community if we aren't addressing some of those systemic issues. I think that missing I think that will be seen as kind of a joke, to be honest with you. I think it would be remiss of us not to look at some of the bigger issues and take ownership of, if these are systemic issues. Webster Groves isn't immune to what happens in the bigger system.
Exactly. And one of the things that came to mind for me is we talk about what our role is as this board and what it was when the board was organized. And maybe we need to also look at that too. I mean, there's a huge ask in that statement, but I don't believe that we can do is say, oh, we're Webster, that doesn't apply to us. We need to look at the things that do apply and what we can do to improve on the things that we can improve on, because there are things that we can improve on. We can even look at the incident last June where I was very clear in our meeting that I thought the officer was definitely not de-escalating and was in some ways antagonistic until an older, more experienced officer came in and did de-escalate the situation. So I think that this is an opportunity to take a look not only at the things that we can do and should look at to see where things apply, but also look at what the role of the board is going to be going forward. When people start talking about dismantling the police and whatever, I'm still trying to get my mind around what that actually means. But maybe it does. It was very clear when we started this board that we're not an oversight board of the police, or we're not, but maybe something needs to be considered that someone else does need to have an opinion, at least in some type of way on things that occur. So
well, I think this furthers our idea of just getting out into the community quickly and finding out what is on their minds. This is clearly on many people's minds. And I think what I feel we need to do is just escalate that intention to get out and hear quickly what's on everybody's minds. I am running into this point of view. I want to understand what is meant by defunding the police and all the implications. I want to listen to that, take notes, study it, talk about it as a board, bring it forth to the Chief Curtis and to the city, and start that engagement. That's where I think we've been wanting to get to, and we plan to get to. And this is, I think, our chance to really reinvigorate that mission. And I want to get to that later, whether we can start signing up and getting out there and being known.
Yeah, I think this comment really, I mean, I think, Karen, your point is very well taken, because defunding the police is such a wide spectrum right now of what that means, even in the general public. So there is, the absolute, which is Anna's contention, that it just needs to be eliminated, essentially, and the money diverted elsewhere. And then there's items in between. So I wanted to bring it up because if we just sweep it under the rug, we're doing a disservice to our community. And so I think there's a lot of concern about police actions, not necessarily in Webster Groves, but elsewhere. We want to make sure it doesn't happen here. And I think Chief Curtis is very attuned to that as well. And they do a fine job, but there's always improvements that can be made everywhere. So I'm going to go on and share the second one. The second request really was from Bill, and he's concerned about the potential loss of life by anybody detained by the Webster Groves Police Department, which has never happened in the city of Webster Groves, but there is that concern because of what has happened elsewhere. He just doesn't want that situation to ever occur. Imagine detention of a person for a nonviolent minor infraction, for example, suspicion of selling cigarettes or passing a counterfeit 20, or during a traffic stop for speeding. So how does the Webster Groves Police Department handle those particular situations? And I think it's important for us to present that information out to the community so that people understand what the policies are of the Webster Groves Police Department. If the person is uncooperative, does the Webster Groves Police Department policy currently allow for any of the following? A wrestling match between the officer and the person, punching the person, kicking the person, using a chokehold on the person, placing a knee on the person's neck. In addition, before force is employed by the officer, are there any of the following required? The officer has done everything in his or her power to de-escalate the situation. A minimum time period has passed. A senior officer is present, i.e. the captain level. Backup officers are present, and all body cameras are activated. So he goes on to say he wants every person detained by the Webster Groves Police Department to be treated as I would want my own child to be treated, or the children of the arresting officers. Bill goes on to talk about the 8 Can't Wait initiatives, and we're actually going to be discussing those specific initiatives later on in this meeting, and what is currently in the Webster Groves Police Department policy related to those 8 particular things that can occur that will de-escalate the situation and prevent police violence. So we'll move on to that. The next one I received was actually from Representative Sarah Unsicker, and she requested a lot of information on the training side. So, we have the systemic racism side with the first comment. We have the procedures and the policies that the Webster Groves Police Department have in place to de-escalate situations and try to prevent police violence. And then the last thing we have, or the next, is a request for information on how much training our officers receive. And that was, and how many calls do they make? And how many hours of service do they provide? And those were some of the statistical information that Representative Unsicker requested. And again, we'll talk about that later on, so I'm not going to bring up her comments at this point. Go ahead, Katie. You want to say something?
Yeah, I believe this may come up later too, but it sort of fits with other things that you just said. Maybe we need to consider some kind of social media presence for our board. And that's maybe not to be certainly decided tonight, but I guess I feel like, for instance, Mayor Welch showed us the Friday pages. My gosh, I didn't even know that was the thing. I was like, I should be getting the Friday pages. Why haven't I not been getting that? And I think all of us have been very conservative about not like putting ourselves out there on social media and saying, hey, I'm on the PCEB, ask me, because I think we've been very respectful of not wanting to represent things that, maybe we aren't cohesive and how we have felt as a board, or what we know we can say publicly as a board. But I do wonder about having like a Facebook page for the PCEB. It just seems like we could be posting some of this information, and it would be very, very easily accessible for people, and could be a good way to build relationships between the community and us. And I think some questions had come up about our transparency, which I don't think that that's been by any intention that we haven't been transparent, but I just wonder if we should further consider that, because some of these documents.
Yeah, I'd like to continue that conversation really on item 6,
Okay.
which is really a direct response to who right now is responding to all the inquiries. and whether or not that procedure really needs to change. And the last remark came from Farrell Carfield, who's the co-chair of the Alliance for Interracial Dignity and Coordinating Council, or the Alliance for Interracial Dignity Coordinating Council. And she wanted to note into the minutes that she had sent a letter, which I had forwarded to all the board members, and we simply have not had a chance to respond thoughtfully on her request. But she wanted to point out that she did send a letter to the board outlining areas where we can improve the transparency of our work and take up a leadership role in the community conversation and engagement. And then she goes on to say, we look forward to hearing your thoughts and discussion on these points. We ask that you lean into the discomfort and help our community grapple with this important moment in history. So I think that, we have met some of the board members. I was not able to attend, but some of the board members attended their meeting last November and
Yes,
sat on a panel and obtained some very valuable information. I think we need to continue that with multiple groups in the community. So but that's something I'd like to on item 10 of the agenda, when we talk about next steps, then let's really focus in on what we can do and how quickly we can do it. Do I have any other remarks or comments regarding the remarks?
Well, I think being part of that, the Citizen Police Academy was part of my feeling the important part to investigate what are those policies and procedures of the police department, so that then we can take that information and get out there and start sharing it from that viewpoint and listen and learn from it. So I wanted to again reemphasize we've been busy doing that, but I do agree we need to focus on next steps quickly.
Right.
It would be nice if there was a place to direct people to when we are asked or we see it being asked on social media. A lot of people that I've seen say that the Webster Grove's police department webpage or whatever doesn't have the policies and procedures. I guess because it's such a long or big document. But is there a way to kind of like summarize like most of the questions that people are asking and to sort of like highlight bullet point there so that people don't keep writing, you know, like you don't have to respond to every letter, like you can, like we can, for those like particular questions about policies and procedures, that we can actually direct them somewhere, whether it's a Facebook page by us or on the city website or whatever. But it does seem like a lot of those policy procedures and even statistics and things that people are really asking a lot right now could be more obvious to the public. It seems like it's kind of hard to get to that sometimes.
Yeah, let's use that as a segue, Jean, into item number 6 on the agenda, because over the course of the last year or so, the information that's presented to the public is really a reactionary, and it's based on events that have occurred in other communities that affects really jurisdictions throughout the country, and potentially could affect, you know, the Webster Groves Police Department and the community here, just like Katie had said. And so I pretty much took it upon myself when I received an inquiry to forward it on to, because I didn't always have all of the facts or the policies, you know, at my disposal, but I generally forwarded them to you guys and to Mayor Welch and to Chief Curtis, so that I could receive information in order to respond. I agree with Jean in that I wish there were a way that we could direct them to the city website or the city Facebook page. I don't know if I want an individual Facebook page for the PCEB, because somebody's got to monitor that on a regular basis. And after going through what I've gone through the last year in trying to respond, because I want to respond as promptly as I possibly can to inquiries. I try, my rule in business is to do it within 24 hours. And I just can't do that because sometimes the bombardment is quite overwhelming to try to respond to the inquiries. So again, I don't know if we could somehow have a link or something within the Webster Groves Facebook page. Mayor?
Dale, go ahead.
Yeah. We've put 3 of the policies, the ones that we had the most inquiries on the city website. I'm fairly certain I talked to Jennifer, who's basically our website master. And I believe we can put them all up there. The only issue with putting them all up there, we have 367 policies. It's a massive amount of information. And even if you go to the policy that you're looking for, I provided you all with the policies. You have to read through a lot of things to decipher what it is and where it is that you want to get to. But we can do that. I'm pretty certain it's not going to happen overnight, but there are those 3 policies that are up there now. We can get our policies on the website. We can also get our CALEA assessment, which I also provided to the board, which gives the last on-site assessment from objective assessors who came in here and looked at all of our policies to make sure that we were following them and that we were doing what we said that we do. So we can get all those things on a web page on our website for the city. It'll happen fairly quickly, but it's not, it's a massive amount of information. So I think it'll be helpful, but I'm not sure how much people are going to want to get, once they get there and see what's there, how helpful that will actually be. It'll, I think, provide good information, but there are probably not a lot of people that are going to read through everything. That's just my opinion, but we'll get them up there.
Is that like something though that could be summarized into like, here's the bullet point, and if you want to read the actual full policy, click here, or something like that where it downloads a PDF, but just have, digestible, easily readable policies that especially the ones that are pertaining mostly to what the public is wanting to know right now.
You
We can do
know,
that. It'll take a little bit of an effort though. So we can do bullet points for each policy. I'll have to have our CALIA manager go through that and provide that kind of, preface it, but we'll have to put it in the format that will go along with the policy. So that'll take a little bit of time.
you
I'm sorry,
know,
Elizabeth.
this has been exceedingly frustrating for me because I'm the one who's been answering email after email after email. And I think we need a page that is a page on our website for the Police Community Engagement Board, a place where people will go. Dale has done a lot of statements. I've done statements, but we don't have one solid place to put them. And if we could create just one page, drive people to that page, every time Dale writes a response to a policy, people don't need to go to 360 pages, but there needs to be a place where some of the current questions that are being asked are answered in a simple manner. That's really what I'd like to see us be able to do from my perspective.
I agree 110%. And I think having those frequently asked questions on there
That's
will help everybody, because I think we're just probably rehashing the same questions.
rehashing everything. And if we did have that one page, and that would be so much easier to manage, I don't know that a Facebook page would be the way to go.
Mayor Welch, are there other boards that have something similar to what you're thinking about that we could look at that can be a model for what we would produce?
I'm not sure that they do. I don't think it's such a bad idea to do that for some of the boards. I know that a lot of the boards have suggested that they want to have a presence on the website, and maybe it's something citywide that we need to think about, so that if you are a board and you have a place to go, that you can put your stuff on that page and people can go to that. So if they're looking for the arts or looking for police or they're looking for sustainability, that there becomes a spot where the various boards maintain their page.
Thank you.
I mean, that seems like a great first step.
It's doable.
Just to get it's just to put a page out there, and to be able to direct people to that page would be so much easier than responding individually every time.
Yes.
Is it easy to update content on the website? Like if we had our own page, and is it pretty easy to do that?
I think so. I think we can do that. That's a whole lot easier than having to respond to setting up your own Facebook page. But sure, we could do that. I mean, we even like the information now that Dale is providing for various groups that I'm providing, we could just put that on one page. Would be easier and useful.
Yeah, who in the city would we talk to in order to get this started, and who on the board would like to actually take this on and actually get it started a little bit, so we can move forward with it?
Jennifer is our person, and because I do all that email stuff, I'm happy to work with somebody on the board and Jennifer to see what we can do. And Dale, I'm sure will weigh in. So if there's somebody on the board who wants to help with that.
I could help with that too. Jean, do you want to do that together maybe?
Yeah, I can definitely help with it. I mean, I do our own, our company website and update it. And we just, I'd be happy to help out in any way I can.
It's just a page, so we're not even having to set up an entire website. Would work.
And then on that link, would there be links then to specific items, or?
We could do that. You could do that. You could link statements. You could link all kinds of things if we had that one landing page that we had.
Could it link to the City of Webster Grove's Facebook page and link out to it so they can, if that gets visited?
Yeah.
A lot. Because that's how I found your Friday page, and I just didn't see ourselves on there.
Yeah. Great.
Hey, what, by the next, next meeting in about a month, I'll follow up, and then I'll follow up individual with Katie, you and Jean to see how it's going. But by the next month to see if we can make progress, in getting maybe that up and running then. I think that
Get
would,
it done next week. Yes,
yeah, I mean, right away.
tomorrow.
That way we can get a report going and really, engage with the public right away. So,
Maybe we've talked about this a long time ago. I wonder about having bios for each of us. It seems like people in the community being able to know who we are to some degree might be helpful in building relationships and trust. But I don't know what everybody else thinks about that. And then that also led me to think about, will Karen be replaced on the board? And
Mhm.
when will we know about that?
Well, we tend to keep people on board and until their term is changed, but this will be different with Karen. But yes, the city council will solicit applications for the engagement board, interview who they want to interview, and make that appointment. And you know, there are categories in the charter or in the bill. So we'll just have to look and see about the various categories that are there. For example, Jean represents the business interests, Scott the physical interest, John Thomas, or physician interest, John Thomas the school district. Everybody has kind of a slot. And it's worked really well because then we have an overall representation from a variety of areas. So Eric is our pastor, our religious person. So
I'm just a citizen.
and you're the citizen leader.
More than that.
So,
A
okay.
very fine citizen.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a real positive thing that we can do right away. I think, you know, let's have it done by the next meeting. Before then, if possible, but let's make sure that it's done by the next meeting.
Please let me know what kind of information you would be willing to share on a website. So if we put a listing of the folks who are on the community engagement board, would you be willing to add your contact information? Just send that to me because I'm not going to put anybody's address, phone number, email on the web unless we have your permission to do so. So
Great.
send that off and then we'll talk about what we put up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The next time, and I think that will help in alleviate some of the issues of me sending it to Jerry and Dell and getting the information and then responding directly to the individual inquiries through my KSPCEB email account. So that way we can,
It's done.
I can respond, but it can be much quicker because I can respond by directing people to a page. So,
Kevin,
yeah.
can you scroll on the agenda on the page? I mean, I have a separate screen that I'm looking at the agenda,
am
but
so
people
sorry.
that are watching it may not. Okay.
Thank you.
I think the only ones watching it are us. So item 7 on the agenda was the discussion of the current Webster Groves Police Department use of force and related policies. This was by far the most inquired request that we received over the course of the last couple of weeks on what exactly is the Webster Groves Police Department use of force policy, and are certain things prohibited within that. And I'd like, without going through all of it, because it is, I mean, there's a lot of pages to it, but I think that the document that's really important is the 8 items that we received a lot of inquiries on these 8 policies, which is the ban on chokeholds and strangleholds, requiring de-escalation, requiring warning before shooting, the requirement to exhaust all alternatives before shooting, a duty to intervene, a ban on shooting at moving vehicles, requiring the use of force continuum, and requiring comprehensive reporting. So Dale, could you possibly summarize some of those policies? I mean, I can certainly do it, I think, but I would feel more comfortable if you could possibly summarize. And let's start with the use of force incident and the use of force continuum.
Yeah, basically that's what I'd be doing is giving bullet points the same as I would that we were talking about for the policies on the website.
Right.
And cover that on the our use of force policy. We have a use of force continuum. It's clearly laid out where you're, what the lowest level is up to the highest level, which obviously is deadly force. It also indicates that you can enter the level at any point that you feel like you need to affect an arrest or to affect compliance, but never beyond what's necessary in terms of the use of force. I'll pick out a couple here. In reasonable use of force. In making an arrest, no more force shall be used than is reasonably necessary for safely taking custody of the arrestee, or for overcoming any resistance that may be offered, and for ensuring the delivery of the arrestee into safekeeping. When such resistance ceases, police force should likewise stop. Unnecessary force is prohibited. Justification for the use of force is limited to what is reasonably known or perceived by the officer at the time. Facts discovered after the event, which were unknown or unavailable at the time of the event, cannot be considered in later determining whether the force was justified, no matter how compelling. And what that means is this. If we find out later that somebody had committed an armed robbery or crime against person or whatever serious offense it might be, and you had stopped them after that, and that's why they were resisting, it wasn't because you had stopped them for, as Mr. Howell said, having a counterfeit $20 bill or some low-level ordinance violation, that doesn't justify you using whatever force you might use that's unreasonable there. So you can't say, well, I used force in this minor ordinance, but it's justified because we found out the guy did a robbery, 30 minutes earlier. That's not permissible. That's not justifiable.
The next item is warning before shooting, which I think is on page 8, section B.
Right. I have them highlighted, I think, the ones that I sent the board, and that's kind of what I'm going over. Is the warning shot being prohibited. Before using a firearm, police officers shall identify themselves, state their intentions where feasible, meaning just exactly what it says. Whether they're in plain clothes or in uniform, that they identify themselves as police officer, make sure that the person that they're addressing knows that they're a police officer, and state their intention to use their weapon. Again, it's where feasible. The instance, for example, where the officer's on the highway being, as a defensive measure, he didn't have an opportunity to do that. But if you're in a situation where it's feasible for you to announce that you're going to fire your weapon, you have to announce that prior to doing so. Shots at moving vehicles. Police officers shall not fire at or from a moving vehicle, except when the occupant of the vehicle is using it or threatening to use deadly force by means other than the vehicle, or the vehicle is operated in a manner deliberately intended to strike an officer or citizen. And all other reasonable means of defense have been exhausted. And that includes moving out of the way of the car. You can't stand in front of the car with your weapon drawn while it's coming at you and then fire at the car and say, well, it was coming at me. You have to make a deliberate effort to get out of the way of the car. The next in the use of force policy is chokeholds. This policy has been in place since the policy was implemented in 2003. I know other departments have allowed chokeholds and other kinds of respiratory restraints. We have never allowed that. Our policy is the use of chokeholds or any other respiratory restraint techniques is prohibited and to be considered deadly force. Next question, the next question on reporting that's included in this, and then we can move over to the conduct portion of it,
Right.
is that officers are required to complete a use of force report in the following circumstances. And I'm not going to read every one of them. Basically, the bottom line, and it's clear if you read this policy, it's, as you can see, it's very extensive. Anytime you use force, and that includes a hand control, pushing, shoving, anything involving a physical encounter, drawing your weapon even if it's not fired, drawing an intermediate weapon even if it's not fired, you have to file a report. The report gives the circumstances. It tells you have to explain what was occurring, what you thought, why you used that force. That's submitted to a supervisor, who then submits it to the platoon commander. He signs off on it. It goes to the field operations commander, and it ends up on my desk. I have to sign off on every use of force policy. Each one of those is then filed, and we review them and compile a report at the end of the year. One of the things that's also useful at is looking and see if there's an individual who has a lot of use of force, which might indicate that there's someone we need to address.
Okay, any questions from anyone on the use of force policy? I provided all of that to all the board members. And there's a lot of detail. That particular policy is 18 pages long, so there's a lot of detail in that policy.
Can that be an early thing posted as a link on this website we're creating as a trial run?
So it's posted on the city website now under transparency.
Yeah. I just wondered if it linked to us too.
Yeah, I think that's one of the issues too, is sometimes it's difficult for the general public. I know it is for me sometimes to find out, okay, where is this stuff on the website, you know? And that's why I think it's important to have a page to say, okay, this is where I need, if I want information about the Police Community Engagement Board or the police department, this is where I can go. So.
I agree with that, Kevin.
Yep. All right. So really the next set of procedures is really code of ethics which is part of the eight elements that I described.
Right. And again, I'll just take the highlighted parts. Again, these are like bullet points, but it's not nearly as extensive as use of force, but there are, several of them.
Right.
The fundamental duties of a police officer include serving the community, safeguarding lives and property, protecting the innocent, keeping the peace, and ensuring the rights of all to liberty, equality, and justice. Employees will never allow personal feelings, animosities, or friendships to influence official conduct. Duties will be performed appropriately and courteously, and in carrying out their responsibilities, employees will strive to obtain maximum cooperation from the public. They will conduct themselves in appearance and deportment in such a manner as to inspire confidence and respect for the position of public trust which they hold. A police officer will never employ unnecessary force or violence, and will use only such force in the discharge of duty as is reasonable in all circumstances. Non-commissioned, we don't need to do non-commissioned. The next one is a fairly important condition here. The use of force should be used only with the greatest restraint, and only after discussion, negotiation, and persuasion have been found to be inappropriate or ineffective. While the use of force is occasionally unavoidable, every police officer will refrain from applying unnecessary infliction of pain or suffering and will never engage in cruel, degrading, or inhuman treatment of any person. Employees will never engage in acts of corruption or bribery, nor will an employee condone such acts by other employees.
So is that the duty to intervene, or?
That's part of it. The entirety, basically, of both of these policies, and you have the ones that were in effect. Like I said, basically, these policies have been in effect since 2003 with some amendments, but these are our core policies that have been there. We did add to the next policy, which you won't have that specific thing. We did, based upon the concerns and the input we got, we did add the specific language with the duty to intervene. That has been added to our policy.
Okay. And for everyone that is interested, that was added as a direct inquiry by a community person, a member from the community. And her name was Ruth, and she wrote a beautiful inquiry, and I responded to her as quickly as I could. But she asked very specific questions about these 8 items, and Mr. Bill did as well. So
The next one that this carries over, and this again, this is part of the duty to intervene. Again, I'm going to the ones that are highlighted, I think, that are most important as far as a bullet point. Interfering with the course of justice in any fashion whatsoever is forbidden. An employee shall not fail to notify his superior of information concerning police matters that comes into their possession. And then again, in the conduct, and this is referencing mostly use of force, unlawful or oppressive exercise of authority, knowingly arrest any person unlawfully, or uses excessive or unreasonable force or violence upon any prisoner or other person with whom he may be brought into contact in the execution of police duties, or treats with contempt or is abusive in language, manner, or action toward any member of the public. Fails to take action to protect life, property, or preserve the peace.
okay. Yeah, one of the respondents, her name was Jill, and I failed to print her request for information, but she brought up CALEA, and whether or not, and how that works on the certification side.
The Accreditation Commission basically sets out the policies that you need to have. They give you guidance, and there's best practices, both from them and from the ICP is primarily the two sources, but they don't tell you exactly what to write. So we have to develop each of these policies based upon community standards, based upon best practices, but we have to have a policy for each thing that is mandatory within the Accreditation Commission. So we develop the policies. Initial accreditation took us about 3.5 years, probably closer to 4 years, to get where we needed to be, which was in 2003, to actually have an assessment. The assessors will come in, they will review all your files, all your policies. They'll look at your facilities, the infrastructure, your static displays. They'll ride with officers, they'll talk to people in the community. They solicit input. They announce that they're going to be here to solicit input. And then at the end of their visit, they will compile a report as to your fitness on each policy, if it fits the standards, meets the standards, and then give a report. Generally, if you have a successful report from an on-site assessment, you can be guaranteed a successful accreditation when you go to the hearing in the following session. That's not always the case. There have been some departments that haven't, but that's rare. So you have to have, like I said, right now we have 367 standards. We're not required to have each one of them. Some of them are optional standards, but you do have to have standards. It's like 200 plus that meet critical criteria as far as being able to serve the public, things like use of force, pursuit policies, training policies, all things that are critical really to the issue of a professional operation that serves the public. So that's basically CALEA. We were one of the first departments in Missouri to become accredited since the Ferguson incident and the passage of SB 5. Most of the other departments are scrambling or attempting to get accreditation either through CALEA, which we have, or the Missouri Police Chiefs Association. So that probably at some point, most if not all of the departments in St. Louis County will be accredited, but it's not an easy thing to accomplish, so some of them may have difficulty doing that.
Thank you. Any questions so far?
One thing I struggled with during the police Citizen Academy was when you pull over or stop somebody for a seemingly minor thing, and then it enters into that escalation of force. And that seems to be what keeps getting highlighted in some of these cases, that it was started as just a counterfeit bill passed, or a guy sleeping on the side of a road, in the parking lot rather. So I didn't know if that could be highlighted or has been asked about. Why you started entering into the use of force continuum, and whether you revisit what got us here. Should we back off, retreat, and rethink and go after it for another day? That was something that perhaps was my naivete, though.
I don't think it's naivety, Doctor. It's a matter of judgment. And yes, the officer continually has to assess and reassess how they got there, where they're at, and whether or not it's something they need to continue. In general, it's best practice to wait for some backup, and that's what most officers will do whenever you get into a situation. Depending upon the seriousness of it, you can totally back off, and in some cases, though you're not able to. If you're engaging someone who's committed a felony, for instance, it's your duty, it's your obligation to make an arrest. You can't foresee how that's going to proceed in every circumstance, unfortunately. In most instances, you know, I can't remember the exact number, but it's close to 4,500 arrests we've made in the last 5 years. Only in 99 of those arrests, which is about just barely over 2%, was it necessary to use force to effect arrest. Officers are trained in de-escalation techniques. Nobody wants to get in a physical confrontation. It's not any fun. It's dangerous. It's also, especially now in this environment, but even before, you're subject to intense scrutiny and criticism, so that officers, I don't know of any officer, especially officers in our force, who haven't been trained in de-escalation, who don't know our policies, who haven't gone through our FTO training, who would engage in any kind of contact with use of force that wasn't absolutely necessary. So again, it's sometimes difficult and sometimes difficult to explain, but when you get in certain circumstances, sometimes you have to engage, sometimes you are able to disengage and wait for backup, or not necessarily take action. I don't know if that helps you or not.
Yeah.
Chief, I'm curious about the de-escalation training that the officers go through. You know, as an educator, I know the de-escalation procedure that we go through, and I think there are probably some similarities to what the police go through, but I think there are some differences. And one of the key aspects that we ask educators to do who have gotten into some type of escalated situation with a student is following that that incident, that they do some processing to talk about or think about what went well, what may have helped that situation get better, or what may have been some triggers to make it continue or make it more amplified. Is that something that's part of the de-escalation training that you all do as well?
Debriefing on any use of force is something that we look at. If there are minor things like hand control, sometimes that's strictly, I would say not sometimes, in many instances, hand control, where you put your hands on and just have taken somebody's arm or hands because they're being resistance. It's usually passive to put your hands behind. Doesn't necessarily benefit from any kind of debriefing. When you get into other areas, when you're talking about use of the pepper spray, or if there's a serious physical confrontation, or especially a taser, all those types of things, when we file a use of force report and they go up the chain of command and we're taking a look at it, officers are they have to look at it in the report, explain it. They usually go over it with their supervisor. When we take a look at it, we debrief on what we did, if there's something that we could or couldn't have done to prevent it. So yes, I mean, that's part of the reporting, use of force reporting process, actually.
Thank you.
All right. I'd like to move on to the next item, which is item 8, the discussion of the request from Representative Sarah Unsicker, and she requested quite a bit of information, and really, in the essence of time, we don't have time to go through all of the information that she requested, but it was all provided. But one comment that she made, She said that I believe that holding police accountable means not only addressing incidents after they happen, but also ensuring they are trained to do the job they are expected to do. The training must be comprehensive. Anti-bias training is not sufficient. The concept of equity should built into the entire training curriculum. It is important, for example, that they understand how trauma can impact an individual's behavior or the reason a victim of domestic violence may choose to stay with their abuser. It's important that they understand their own cultural beliefs and that they see conflicting views of the world as valid. And I think she makes a very good point. And part of the information that you provided to Representative Unsicker was the training on the crisis intervention team training that can you possibly summarize some of that training? I mean, it's almost where an officer has to be trained to provide mental health services in some respects. And Katie, this is right up your alley, so.
Yes, I'm sorry, that's one of the things I don't have right in front of me, but I can briefly go over it. Basically,
Okay.
It's a 40-hour class. It's a 1-week class. Every one of our officers, it's taught in the academies now, but every one of our officers is trained in the critical incident team. And they go over different components. It requires for an officers to basically be submersed in the idea of different, the diverse mental conditions, cultures, perceptions. Part of the component, again, not every class shows you if there's racial profile training or racial disparity training, but part of the training in this also refers to a racial component, different perspectives, diverse cultures that you need to become familiar with, and what their experiences are, and how you need to think about those and address those. The CIT training, one of the things that's important with it is for those kind of situations is that we try to deal with things in a non-criminal way. If it's at all possible, keep it out of the criminal justice system, refer people to social services, different agencies that can help them out. We do have a mental health court here in Webster Groves. Fortunately, we don't have to take advantage of it very often, but it provides the kind of perspective that Representative Unsicker is talking about. It's not as specifically addressed to the racial component, but we have other courses that do that. I provided an instance of the racial, don't remember the exact name of the course, procedural justice, and some other courses that do address those specifically. So it's not, in some courses like the CIT, every officer does get trained, does get the exact training. In other cases, we can't have every officer sitting in class all the time. So we have to basically look at independent courses that generally address those kind of areas. And each officer does get training in those above the mandatory that's asked and post. So I do believe, certainly I think there's areas that we can improve on there. I do think that it's a good case to be made that we need to focus more intently on some of those areas, but it's not something that we've disregarded. It's something that we know is important and that we've focused on for training for officers for quite a bit of time. Again, one of the problems is making sure that you're able to find these kind of courses to get as much training as possible. And officers have to go through a significant amount of training in a number of areas, so that it's difficult to build up a lot of time on any one subject.
Thank you. Yeah. One thing that you did provide her too was the number of hours of training, ongoing training provided to the officers. And I mean, this isn't all of them because there's only 2,080 hours in a year, right? But in total, am I getting this correct that there was 2,564 hours of training provided for all the officers?
That's correct.
I mean, that's ongoing. for training, and the CIT program is just part of that. And then and again, another thing that might be, you put on it could be a link to the website, is the field, Webster Grove's field training. It's very detailed on when it's a new officer going out and into field training. And this is one thing, Scott, you and I learned during the Citizens Police Academy, is all the reports and the grades and the observations that have to be made during the field training process. Ratings, documentation, performance reviews, progress logs, scoring, before an officer actually gets off their probationary period. So the other thing I thought was telling the, I don't know if everyone knows, but another thing that we did during the Citizens Police Academy is we visited the East Central Dispatch Center. Quite an impressive operation that is dispatches fire and police for multiple communities in this particular area. And Representative Unsicker asked for how many call for services we did in 2019. And correct me if I'm wrong, though, am I correct in saying there were 32,176 calls for service?
That's correct.
And if you look at the list, the list is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 pages long on the different reasons why people call. One, the assist the fire department almost 2,000 times. I'm picking out some larger ones. Contacting another person or an agency, 687 requests for service. Illness, 268, but there's a bunch of sick illness cases that total over 500 or 600. Illness or injury report, is that right? No. So one of the largest was illegally parked auto was 1,117.60. So, those are parking violations, but don't we have a particular officer that's responsible for that?
He doesn't respond to every one of those, but he's responsible for the business district. So a substantial majority of those are from the parking control officer, yes.
So, hey, Kevin, do you mind if I pipe in with a little something? I really appreciate what Chief Curtis said about that, that the crisis intervention training has those mental health aspects. And then also Chief Curtis said that, that's not exactly the same as like the racial bias training. And so I guess when I was thinking about Representative Unsicker's, her requests, that some of the words that she used were like anti-bias, equity, and trauma. And I've been hearing the phrase anti-racist recently, and I think that's a good phrase. But I think some of those words, even on our board, we may not have an understanding that is like a mutual understanding of what all those words mean. And I think we're going to keep hearing them from our community. So I think it would be probably good to get on our agenda at some point, somebody to come in and help teach us so that we can all be on the same page. What do those words mean? What is our community asking for? When you hear the word anti-bias, it might mean something different than when I hear that word. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah. No, I mean, all the information that we can get from the professionals would help us really engage better with the community.
Katie, I think that's a good point. I don't want to speak for him because he's not here, but I think that was part of the essence of what Reverend Hayes was trying to say in the communication from earlier today, is making sure that we all have the same understanding, the same definition, the same concept of what some of this terminology is.
Well, and I think it's important that we all come from different experiences. I mean, I can't honestly say that I know. I'm a white person, so I honestly can't say what it really is like to be black. I mean, I can't say that because I'm not. So, you know, my world experience is going to be a little different than, or a lot different than a lot of folks. And I think we need to understand that better.
Eric Hayes is here. He is on our call now.
Oh, excellent.
I've been on for a little while. I had some things going on with my wife. She's got a doctor's outpatient surgery tomorrow, so I was listening, but I was doing some things.
Okay. Well, welcome. Eric, I know it's well long roll call, but I'd like for you to introduce yourself to we have several guests and visitors listening, and I'd like for you to introduce yourself.
Okay, Eric Hayes, pastor of Old Community Missionary Baptist Church, 238 Kirkham Avenue, West Grove, Missouri. I've been pastoring there for 15 years now.
Wow.
And why did you decide that this is what you wanted to do for the community?
Well, I think there needed to be not only a face, but also a voice for the African American community. There was a concern that was brought up in our church congregation that they didn't think there was enough African American faces that involved, period, in Webster Groves. And so even though I don't live in Webster, I thought, well, being a pastor in Webster, it would be a good idea, a good thing to do.
Right, and with your parishioners, you're able to really hear what's on their mind a lot, and then share that with everyone, which helps improve our knowledge.
True.
But, yep.
On that note, I am a little concerned about losing Karen, first of all, because she's a great member of the board. But I mean, I would hope that we would, get another person of color. Look at all of our white faces here, and then besides Eric being joined on, I would hate to get just another white face on this board, because like you said, you don't have the experiences of someone that grew up in the Black community. I mean, none of us really do that are on here that aren't Black. So I don't know, if that could be not necessarily a requirement, but I hope that the city council is very aware of the situation with our board, and that we really need another person of color to join.
Absolutely. That was very much of a concern when the council did the appointees. And I believe Karen was chosen because she lives in North Webster, which has traditionally been our African American community. And I think probably with Karen's help, we can identify someone from that community who would apply to be on the board.
Absolutely. And that's just key, especially in this environment, because just as one of the statements earlier, I think that if nothing else, one of the things that is so evident about the engagement that we've seen in the community is what's different about this one is just quite honestly, white people are finally saying, okay, there's something here that I don't get, that I've been missing. And I think that that's a part of the conversation that has to continue, and it has to, we have to have somebody with our experiences to be able to articulate that.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Karen.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Any other information that we want to talk about on Sarah's request? Let's go ahead and move on to the discussion of the unified statement of condemnation. I think it's so important that as a police community engagement board that we condemn that absolutely horrific event that occurred in Minneapolis. For so many different reasons. And so I drafted this for everyone's review. And I know did receive response from Eric, from Pastor Hayes, and from Katie on adding a section to it. And what I would like to do is really go through paragraph by paragraph and make sure everyone's okay with it, because I really want to approve this tonight so we can issue it right away. I'm not quite sure where we can put it, because we don't have that landing page right now.
Kevin, can I interject for just a second?
Sure.
I just wanted to answer Katie's earlier question. It doesn't require agreement or permission of the police department for the board, whatever, not just this, but whatever the instance is. You're an independent board appointed by the council. Whatever you all recommend or suggest is not subject to my approval. So I just wanted you to be aware of that.
But
And Kevin,
yeah.
I will work hard to try to get this page up in the next day or two, and then Katie and Jean can also look at it so that we have a place to put that statement.
Okay. So I would like to, I don't know, let me try to share it. Does everybody have a copy of it in front of you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I do.
Essentially the members of the City of Webster Groves Police Community Engagement Board strongly condemn the excessive use of force, including what was used against George Floyd by the Minneapolis police officer that was captured on video. We condemn the action of this individual officer. We also condemn the lack of intervention by other police officers present. Even though this horrific event occurred outside of our community, it has ignited the nation in forcing change. The Webster Groves Police Department policy strictly forbids the types of restraint methods used against Mr. Floyd. The Webster Groves Police Department policy is severely restrictive, and each use of force incident requires documentation and review. More importantly, this policy has been in effect since April 2004 and last updated in February 2016. This policy prohibits the use of chokeholds or any other respiratory restraint technique. Use of that particular section 6D4 on page 9 of this policy specifically states use of chokeholds or any other respiratory restraint is prohibited and to be considered deadly force. Webster Groves Police Chief Dale Curtis reported that in the 17 years this policy has been in effect, one complaint was received for the use of pepper spray during a resisting arrest in 2012. This complaint was investigated and was unfounded based on a witness account. The Police Community Engagement Board members have been meeting for a little over a year and have been gathering policy information, discussing specific police actions that have occurred, and have become better educated regarding the operations and programs of the Webster Groves Police Department. We have also been developing a survey to be used in the community to provide information about the Webster Groves Police Department and to enable the community members to provide feedback. Some of our members have participated in a local organization's event, including a panel discussion. We have also responded to individual inquiries, have published meeting agendas and minutes, and have always welcomed guests to our meetings. Some of the members also attended the Citizens Police Academy, which is offered every couple of years and is available to anyone in the community. This program was developed and presented by leadership within the Webster Groves Police Department. We do not want what happened to George Floyd and to many other Black lives in other jurisdictions to ever occur in Webster Groves or anywhere. We currently have every confidence in the management of the Webster Groves Police Department and in the dedication of the police officers on duty. We are confident that policies are in place to prevent similar events in our community. However, we must never be complacent and must recognize that positive change is necessary and constant. The COVID-19 pandemic has delayed our efforts, but we remain committed to improve the engagement between the Webster Groves Police Department and the community. We welcome any suggestions from the community and from the community groups on how we can accomplish this goal. Respectfully, Police Community Engagement Board members. So, Katie and Eric, I'd like for you to comment on what addition you would like, and then anyone else, if they have any additions, modifications, or changes, I'll go ahead and make them now and then send it out with any modifications for everyone to final review.
Well, after reading it, as of now, I don't really have any additions to add to it. I think it's great.
You know, Katie, really, I'd like to hear from you on the additions that you would like to.
So I emailed you all, and I don't have my email up in front of me with the Zoom screen, but the gist of what I thought would be important to include would be an acknowledgement that systemic racism exists and impacts us, and that we take it seriously and are wanting to be part of dismantling that as it applies to the interactions between police and our community in Webster Groves.
Right. I go ahead, Eric.
Okay. And what I had, I think replied earlier was not really an addition. It was just a comment. I don't have my email in front of me either. Just that we were saying that this was the same feelings of our police department. So my question was, how do we know that's the way the police department feel? That was the question I'd ask. If we were gonna say that, you know, we have to make sure we know that the police department feels that way, that racism does exist. But,
well, Eric, as I understand it, we don't represent the police department. So if the police, like an individual officer might think, well, I'm not racist, and many probably do, but we're kind of saying, hey, we see that there's a system of racism that would impact everybody, whether we're conscious of it or not. Does that?
We see, but I think the way it was quoted earlier, it said that the police department believes that systemic racism does. So how do we know they believe that?
Katie, let me go ahead and read your statement verbatim
Okay.
from the email. You'd say, I'd like us to say something like, okay, as a board, we know systemic racism shapes our experience as Americans, including law enforcement, both citizens and police officers. So the statement is that we know that systemic racism shapes our experience, and law enforcement knows that as well. Am I correct in kind of summarizing that?
Sure.
I don't think that's a stretch. I mean, I don't pretend to understand what systemic racism looks like, because I can't wrap my head around it because I'm not that way. So it's really hard for me to understand. And I think Scott brought that up too. It's a very complicated issue everywhere. But and it goes back to what is the charge of this board? Is it to look at that and how it affects us?
Right.
I think
sorry.
I think we have to look at what's happening around us, because if we don't, then we're operating within a vacuum.
Well, I also think that from a psychological perspective, like, we are ignoring people's pain. There are a lot of people in a lot of pain, and that is what we are seeing with the protests throughout the country, which are related to law enforcement. So if we ignore the pain aspect, we are really either setting ourselves up to look like we don't know what the heck we're doing at all, and we are potentially hurting people all over again. So I definitely think we have to incorporate something that directly addresses that, or we kind of look dumb, in my opinion.
What if we say, as a board, we know systemic racism shapes our experience as Americans, period.
Yes.
And then the next sentence, this board commits to anti-racist work. We don't have to include We don't have to include what we think, law enforcement's thinking and all that.
Exactly.
I love it. Perfect.
Where should this be inserted?
I think towards the end, like Scott was saying, where we talk about what we're committed to. Because, I think another thing is, we need to commit to listening to the community. Chief Curtis said earlier, and I'm going to misquote him, but, the department polices the way the community wants to be policed. And I think, the majority of Webster Groves is white. We need to make sure that we're hearing from all of Webster Groves, the Black community, and hearing their concerns. And I know we've heard from the Alliance, but, haven't really ventured into North Webster yet. So I really think we need to be good listeners to what the concerns are.
Right. So would you put it after at the end of the next to the last paragraph?
Kevin, I think probably so. Right where we do not want what happened to George Floyd and to many other Black lives in other jurisdictions to ever occur in Webster Groves or anywhere. We currently have every confidence in the management of the Webster Groves Police Department and the dedication of police officers on the duty. However, as a board, we do realize that systemic racism exists. Because if you don't have it right there, that statement seems a little, pardon the pun, but whitewashed, because I know you follow it up with, we are confident that policies are in place to prevent similar events in our community. But right there, the policies that exist also are often what helps to perpetuate systemic racism, because you got the policies, but you're exercising them based upon your own experiences and not based upon experiences of some of the non-white population. So you think you're executing
I like that, Karen, because I had made a note that part was, even though, we get to listen to Chief Curtis and work with him and know what kind of person he is, to say we have every confidence in every single person on the police, that seems overstated.
Right.
And so
I would like it removed. I would like it removed.
Yeah.
Because I just think it's taken it in a whole different direction, that we're apologists.
Right.
In my view, when I read it, I felt like we were going a whole different direction there.
That's what I want to hear.
We are supportive of Chief Curtis and the city, of course. I mean, that's why we're doing this. And I don't think we need to say we're confident they're doing everything. I think that's where we are engaging, and we're going to present what they're doing. And let all these groups discuss with us how they feel about it and listen to them, rather than be apologists.
Okay, so I think that what we're saying is we currently have every confidence in the management. Do we leave that in?
Well, I agree with Scott in taking that out, because that's not the purpose
Take that
of the
out.
letter.
Okay, so take out all of that, and then after we do not want what happened to George Floyd and to many other Black lives in other jurisdictions to ever occur in Webster Groves or anywhere.
Here's what I wrote. Do you want to hear what I put on that? As I said, we want to prevent what happened to George Floyd and to so many other Black lives in other jurisdictions from ever occurring in Webster Groves or anywhere else in our country.
And then you might comment that we
then we put in
systemic racism exists.
And then we bring in the systemic racism thing. That's how I saw it.
Okay, so we want to prevent what happened to George Floyd and to many other Black lives in other jurisdictions to ever occur in Webster Groves.
From ever occurring in Webster Groves or anywhere else in our country is what I had. I don't know how that sounds for you guys.
Sounds good.
No,
okay, let me repeat it again. I want to make sure it's right. We want to prevent what happened to George Floyd and to many other Black lives in other jurisdictions from ever
occurring,
in Webster Groves or anywhere else in our country.
Mhm.
Then I don't think, however, needs to be there. I think we just say, as a board, we know systemic racism shares our experience as Americans.
shapes our experience.
Did I say shares, shapes?
Yeah.
I wrote shapes. I just can't read my own
Good.
writing.
Must be a doctor.
No,
Uh,
this
Essentially,
Getting
the statement will say, as a board, we know systemic racism shapes our experience as Americans. This board commits to anti-racist work as it pertains to the relationship between law enforcement and citizens and the citizens of Webster Groves
Mhm.
or the Webster Groves community.
Yes.
I think the
Either
Webster
way.
Groves community, because it's not only just citizens, but it's students, it's business owners, it's clergy, it's,
I think it's a lot stronger that way.
I could be just listening to it too many times, but kind of what keeps sticking out at me is the term, we want to prevent what happened to George Floyd and from ever happening again. I think that's we can't necessarily prevent that, but we would hate for what happened to George Floyd or anybody else to happen in Webster Groves. I feel like us saying we want to prevent this from ever happening again is overstating kind of what we can do or what we're promising.
I feel it's aspirational. That you're trying to say that's what we want. I'm not saying we'll get there tomorrow.
I get what you're saying, Jean, that it stands out as a big word, but I do like the aspirational part of it. I'm not opposed to that word being in it.
Or maybe we want to work to prevent instead of we want to prevent. I don't know.
Do you just want to work to prevent, or you want to prevent?
I want to prevent, but
Yeah,
people be like,
that's what I'm saying. It's your aspiration. It's the gold
you know?
standard. You want to go for that.
I said I was probably overthinking it, so carry on.
I think we do. I think we do want to do all we can to prevent it. I mean, and that's that we want to prevent it.
Right.
I'm not. Yeah.
I mean,
it's gonna be beyond our lifetime. But
why sugarcoat it? We want to prevent it.
Right.
We just need to be ready with. We get the question, how are you going to do that? We need to have solid answers for that.
do we have to have all the answers, or do we
No.
listen
Well,
to
it's
the
like, well,
to
how are you going to
and
do that? Your board, how is your board going to do that? We just need to be able to say, this is what we're doing.
we're going to work together and listen to the community to help us brainstorm ways to work towards that aspiration.
With the same question, even if we say we want to work to prevent, the question still may come up, well, how are you going to work to prevent it? So either way, that question may come up.
Yeah, and I think either way, we need to have an answer to that. I think we need to be able to answer that question.
Well, I think we are working to prevent it now by bringing it to the attention of the police department and by sharing the information that we're receiving from the community with the police department. It's just, we need to also present the information from the police department to the community so the community can respond. I mean, that's where the open channels of communication need to occur, and we are the facilitators of that.
Right. And there's no way that you're going to have all of the answers now, because if that were the case, we wouldn't still be in this position.
That's exactly right.
You know? So we have to start where we are, state what we want, and then we deal with the questions that come back as they come.
I have a little question. Do we capitalize the B in Black Lives? I don't know.
Yes.
I think yes. So I would change it from lowercase to capital.
I've been capping it on everything I write.
I think we need to capitalize it.
I've read this thing so many times, I don't even know where I put it.
In the area we're talking about, we want to prevent.
Oh,
so
okay,
many
okay,
other
okay.
Black lives. I say you capitalize the B.
Okay. 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 We want to prevent what happened to George Floyd and to many other Black lives in other jurisdictions from ever occurring in Webster Groves or anywhere else in our country. As a board, we know systemic racism shapes our experience as Americans. This board commits to anti-racist work as it pertains to the relationship between law enforcement and the Webster Groves community. Okay. So do I would like to entertain a motion that we, I will make these changes and I will send it out to you for your final review, but with these modifications, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve this statement and post it as soon as possible to either the Webster Groves website or even somewhere that is easily accessible to the community of Webster Groves.
I move that we approve the condemnation statement that we discussed tonight with minor revisions and after our review, and post it as quickly as possible.
All right, do we have a second?
I second.
So John moved and Katie seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. All right, I will get this to you either later tonight or first thing in the morning.
Kevin?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you please send me a copy of the original and a copy of the revisions? I
Sure.
didn't get a copy of the original.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'll send you the original without all my chicken scratching all over it.
Fair, you can put chicken scratch on. I'm good at reading that.
No, I'll send you the original and then I'll send you the revised as well. So
Thank you. I appreciate it.
sure. So as far as this meeting is, we've gone for about 2 hours. But I was hoping that this was about the amount of time that we would spend. And I think we've accomplished a lot tonight, more than we have probably since we started, quite honestly. And I think the discussion has been quite valuable. Our next action, I think next month, should be I think we need to revisit the survey in light of what has occurred. I really think that we don't need to rush this out because we're not going to be able to go out into the community for a while anyway. And then we can meet with the individual community groups and see if we can set up some kind of Zoom panel discussion, if you will. But I'm not convinced that the survey itself is the way to go. I think the survey could be used to provide information and to obtain feedback, but I think it is too bland. I think it's too sugar-coated. I think it doesn't really get to the issues that we've discussed tonight.
I think we just need to get out to the community quickly, and I would want us to each sign up just to at least contact a few of those groups.
Okay.
Just to say we're here and we are getting ready, and we want to get any maybe each of us that take on a few of those organizations, find out what would they like us to engage, how would they like us to engage with them. Is that?
Yeah. I think that what I will do is I've got to find the list. I fear we just moved, and I fear it's in a box.
Okay.
Because I wanted to try to find it, and I couldn't put my hand on it this afternoon because I was really trying to get ready for this meeting.
Maybe Kevin, over email between meetings, we could get that list out and each take a few groups and just make contact.
Right.
That's what I want. Yeah.
I think that we make contact, find out who the right person to contact is, when their next meeting is, whether they would be interested in us participating, and introduce ourselves. And so why don't I send the whole list out, and then everybody can send me back who they would like to contact.
That's good.
And if I can't find it, I may ask for one of you guys to look and see if we've got the list.
Is that the list that I got from Detective Bell?
I think so, yeah, but we added some stuff. So that's
Yeah.
what I've got to find, is that the handwritten ones that I added.
Hey, Kevin, we've
Yeah.
been making lists for our redevelopment project, so we might have pretty close to a good list for you already for the
All right,
redevelopment
that would be,
project, and just give it to you.
yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah. And then I can send it out, and if there's if there's any glaring group that's missing, we can always add.
I think that's a great idea. And you know, I went to the Alliance meeting back in in November or whatever, and that was good. It was more of an introduction. I don't know that we did a whole lot, but it was a good introduction of the two groups together. I think what we could do is maybe take the lead and not only go out to the groups, but also host something like the PCB, like a town hall type of thing, where we are the hosts. We invite the groups, we invite concerned citizens, and we actually have a dialogue there right then and there, that we don't have to worry about sending surveys out and getting surveys back, but really just kind of start the conversation. At least, get some feedback, like immediate feedback on what the community expects of us, and then also talk about some issues that they have that they want to talk about, that maybe we can be the bridge to the police, and we can kind of I just think that it would be great for us to sort of kick off sort of this initiative with some sort of meeting of our own.
I think it needs to have some structure, though, some kind of presentation ahead of actually getting information and then feedback back. I'm a CFO, so I am very orderly. There needs to be structure, and then some kind of, and then it's an open discussion and an open response. But I like to get some kind of presentation out so that it can get people to think about how to respond. And I'm not quite sure how to do
I
that.
also wonder if we should do a little prep for that, because like as we know, there may be people who feel really angry or very emotional, and
Right.
that may be coming toward us as PCE board members, and so to know how to navigate that respectfully, to do active listening, like we might need a little bit of I don't know, skill building on that. It might not be necessary, but it just occurred to me. So
I mean, I think we can put something together like within the next couple months. I mean, I think.
Oh,
I don't think,
absolutely. No,
Yeah.
I don't think we should. I think it should be, we need to make the contact and try to do some kind of community forum within, August, so.
I just think we don't have a lot of time to just kind of go through it in a regular, orderly fashion that a lot of people that we would normally kind of do. I think that this is kind of the moment. The protests are going on now. People have questions. I just don't want it to like drag out too long.
Agreed.
To where we're not like being an active part of the community as the PCEB. Like we should be engaging with the community right now.
Right.
And
Okay.
the Zoom actually is a benefit, because we still sort of have a captive audience. I mean, you have
Yeah.
I don't know what the level of engagement is with Zoom. I know you can typically have, I think, up to 100 people.
Well, we had close to 50 participants this
Mhm.
evening, and we're down to 36 right now, but we had close to 50 that were listening to us. So I think it's really important and that we reach out. Someone else but me needs to take the lead on this, though. I've got a house closing in a few weeks, and I'm buried right now. So But if we can get something going by, I think the middle of August, so we can get the condemnation statement out right away. That'll be a communication and an engagement to the to the community. And then if we can get something set up either with a group or with a town hall, if you will, to get input from folks. I don't know how the Zoom works though, in being able to hear people communicate with us.
I think the moderator people have to raise their hand and like digitally, and then the moderator opens their mic so they can ask a question.
Kevin, if I can, I've been to, Slapka has been doing Zoom meetings, and there's probably between 75 to 100 people on the Zoom meetings. As long as people are careful, it's not a big problem. You can actually, you can communicate back and forth. Whoever's running the meeting just needs to be careful about having people muted whenever they're not speaking. But it's something that is doable with a large crowd.
Okay, yeah, opening and closing mics, I guess. So, okay. All right.
Really, I think that if we could shoot for like July or end of July, it would be better. It would seem more timely, but maybe worst case
As I
scenario.
said, someone else is going to have to take the lead on that because I can't do it.
That's just a month.
Yeah. Lots can be done in a month.
Oh, I've got to mute myself. I've got a dog playing with their dog toys right now.
Well, hopefully we can reach out to the other groups within July, and that'll be a great start and find that out immediately.
Yeah.
Like it.
You're muted, Kevin.
Pardon the dog. She's got a squeaky toy, so if you
All
hear
right.
what it is. So we normally meet on Tuesdays, which is better for me. I don't know if it's better for you guys or not.
Sure.
The
Monday and Tuesday are great for me.
Okay, the next city council meeting, I believe, is what, the 14th?
Tomorrow.
No, after that, July.
What's the first Tuesday of July? I don't have my calendar.
July 7th is the first Tuesday. Is that when it is?
It's the 1st and 3rd.
Okay.
37 and 21.
Oh my gosh. I should have everything done by then. The 14th, my house is supposed to close on the 15th. So
Wow.
but the 14th will be fine. Is it work for everyone else?
You know, that's my son's 17th birthday.
Ooh.
What's the 21st look like?
It's fine.
That's city council.
Can
Oh,
we
that's
do
the 3rd. That's
the
the 3rd.
7th? The 7th is no good?
No, because that's the city council. The city council meeting is on the 1st and 3rd Tuesdays.
Well, you guys can do it without me, or I could come for some part of it.
I mean, we could do it Monday the 13th.
Yeah, why don't we do Monday?
Monday, does it have to be Tuesday? If
No.
Monday's
Maybe this time Monday.
Monday the 13th.
I can
Sounds
do
good.
that.
That was good.
Okay,
6:30?
6:30.
No, that's good.
Okay. Now, the other thing that I would like for you guys to do is I have always prepared the agenda, and I feel as if I would like to get agenda preparing input from you guys. So I'm not always actually preparing it. My responsibility is to set the agenda, but there may be some things that I'm not thinking about that you guys want to discuss. So if you have items, if you could send me any agenda items that you would like to be included in the meeting, a week in advance. I like to try to get the information to Katie no later than Thursday for a Monday or Tuesday meeting.
Okay.
Okay. So if you could get me that information sometime the week of, somewhere around
July 6th week sometime.
July 6th week. Yeah. That would be great.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I want to say thank you to all of you. This was the best discussion tonight. Thank you very much for your service, willingness to think. This was a very, very good meeting. Thank you.
Well, it's important work. It's more important than any of us. It's really, it's the community that is affected by all this, and it just makes me sick that these things are happening all around us.
Yeah.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move.
Eric, Reverend Hayes moved to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All right. The meeting is adjourned. Karen, enjoy your new role, and I'm looking forward to, at some point, celebrating with you a little bit.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thanks to everyone.
Congrats, Karen.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Whoops.